The SEC is at the top of the recruiting world, and down in Texas A&M, there's a new man in charge in Mike Elko. But what does he have to work with in terms of, he came into this job just a few weeks ago, and he kind of just has to work with what he's got. So what does he have?
You know, these transitional classes, when you kind of study them and look back, normally not a lot of guys stick around, especially in this era with the transfer portal. I think Mike Elko, what I get excited about, you look at him at Duke, and it was a methodical process, very well thought out. Duke, in this 2024 cycle, their entire recruiting class was committed by July 4th. They were done. And they were looking into the transfer portal to make some additions there. So he has brought in, I don't want to say an army of people, stealing Billy Napier's term from when he arrived at Florida, but he's reworked that scouting department. And I think Texas A&M has no issues attracting the top talent. We saw that in 2020, all those 5 stars, all the defensive linemen. But I think the Aggies' issue was the back end of the roster. If you go down the commit list, the guys that are 15 to 25, it was good players, but what was the long-term developmental upside? Well, now Mike Elko is at Duke, where they didn't have access to the blue chippers, so they had to scout. They had to find guys with traits, guys with developmental upside. I get excited about him in College Station because, again, they're going to get the big names, but he's going to build out that roster, and he's going to hit with his 6th, 7th, draft picks, and those are going to be some impact players.
And Coach Elko has familiarity, having been a defensive coordinator in College Station. I go back to something Mike Roach, our colleague, told us on the recruiting show recently, is that Mike Elko is going to have to go into the Texas High School Association coach's office and kind of kiss the ring, right? And realize that, hey, I have to butter these guys up. I'm looking at the stats here, 7 commits only from the state of Texas. That would be the lowest that A&M would ever sign in the 24/7 Sports era, which is a very low number considering that, hey, you're battling Oklahoma now, you're battling Texas. You don't have just the SEC thing to sell to these recruits in-state anymore. They are also going to be able to sell that now as well. So he has to kind of neutralize and get back in good graces with the Texas high school football coaches.
Not to mention all the losses happening in the portal. What's the long-term plan at quarterback for Texas A&M?
Yeah, that's kind of the question for me. They lost Anthony Maddox, who was a kid out of the state of Mississippi, committed to the previous coaching staff. Lane Kiffin comes in late, flips Anthony Maddox. They're going to sign Miles O'Neill, a late bloomer out of New Jersey. I've studied Miles O'Neill. I think there's some developmental upsides. I have a little question marks about the level of competition. I think if you took some of his throws, you put him down, I don't know, in Georgia or South Florida, some of those touchdown passes might be some interceptions, but you can see it there. I said when Mike Elko took over, hey, DJ Lagway's a guy you got to try to get an in-home visit with. Well, the Aggies did get one of those visits, and we'll see what happens with DJ Lagway. I think you bring up a good point. 2025 recruiting, that quarterback position's going to be big for Mike Elko. Hey, Terry Bussey, we mentioned him on the top of the show as a 5-star prospect, #1 athlete. He's played some quarterback at Timpson High School. Maybe you can run some Wildcat with him, but I'm not concerned too long-term just with the transfer portal. You got Connor Wegman there. They'll figure it out, but 2025 is when they definitely need to get an arm.
They need a home run in 2025. I was looking at the numbers. They had the old staff, I guess we could say, is over 25 scholarship offers to that 2025 class. So they had cast a really wide net. Now it's going to be Elko's job to really hone in on who the top target is for them.
On defense, linebacker Tristan Jernigan is a guy that I know that you're really excited to see. What can he do early on with the Aggies?
Well, Trayshawn York, in 2023, he was a freshman All-American for the Aggies, which is crazy to think about when they signed the highest-ranked recruiting class ever 2 years prior for him to come in and make an impact. I think it's the same thing with Jernigan. He's an athletic linebacker. He can play all 3 downs. It was interesting to see Texas A&M push into the state of Mississippi. I think that is a region of the country that is under-recruited a little bit. Yes, you have Ole Miss there. Yes, you have Mississippi State, but not a lot of people mind the area for it. We'll see if they can hold on to Tristan Jernigan. A few other defenders here that they need to hold on. Steve Wilpon reported Dominique McKinley, 5-star defensive lineman. He's not expected to sign today. And then still no NIL or, no.
NLI.
NLI. I'm confused from Dalen Evans, He was a top 46 player for us, defensive lineman out of Pine Tree, Longview High School. He reminds me a little of Gervon Dexter, the Florida defensive lineman who's now with the Chicago Bears and having a heck of a rookie season. Just a guy that can move people, apply some pressure in there. So there are some things I like in this defensive class for Texas A&M that kind of Mike Elko inherited. Now he's just got to get it across the finish line.
And a reason why you would make a coaching change when they did and they were so aggressive is because you need to lock in some of these recruits. They were bit by the decommitment bug as hard as anyone, especially in the SEC. When you think about Cam Coleman headed over to Auburn, Draylon Miller committing to Colorado, you have to hang on to McKinley and Jernigan, like Andrew mentioned. I think it's going to be really important because you need a solid core in that first group. Even though it's not his first true recruiting class, you still need a foundation to build with.
Yeah, you mentioned the slew of decommitments. It's a kind of a natural transition process when you do fire a head coach and bring in a new one. You're going to see a little bit of that. But when it comes to Texas A&M in the future, and of course Mike Elko coming in and wanting to steady that ship a little bit, did to a certain extent in the fact that he gets to keep the man that I know you love, the #1 athlete in Terry Bussey. How much of a gift is it to keep him on the front?
Well, you said Mike Elko is a defensive coordinator, so we at 24/7 Sports list him as an athlete because some of us think he's a receiver, some of us think he's a defensive back. I'm hoping Mike Elko pushes him to the defensive side of the ball. And, you know, is it going to be a year one type of impact? I think there's a chance. When I watched Texas A&M this season, I thought the biggest weakness for the Aggies was that secondary. I thought there were times it was not a good unit. And Terry Bussey, yes, you know, he's had to play both sides of the ball, so he hasn't really honed in on being a defensive back, but he still had 84 tackles. You turn on that state title game I was talking about earlier, he's in the flats making plays. So it's huge for Mike Elko that Terry Bussey's there because I think he could be maybe that low safety. You can play him half field. He's just a playmaker, and you want to play those guys.
And I'm still hoping that he gets in on some Wildcat packages. I mean, he's so electric with the ball. Maybe in the situational down, right, where you need to pick up a play or an end around or where he could throw the football. I know he's got a pretty good left arm. That'd be really, really fun.
Throw the football, intercept I mean, it sounds like that this is the guy that you just got to get on the field no matter which side of the ball is playing.